Welcome everyone to the special segment for the Shabbos table. This is a very early time in the week for doing the Shabbos table, Tuesday evening, as we're going into a 3-day Yom Tov, where we remind everybody of the many things you have to do tomorrow. You should remember to do an Erev Tavshil. Also bear in mind that we have to make Birchas Ilanais, and of course you have to burn your chametz and do bittul tomorrow. If you're a Bechar, then you're going to hear a siyum like me, and you're careful that when you get up in the morning, you don't take a drink before you go down to shul, because before you hear the siyum, you're fasting. This segment is being dedicated by the Rubin family, our founding sponsor For the Shabbos Table, with a tefillah that they should be zeicha to have a healthy ben zachar, and that they should have atzlach and ruchnius and gashmias, and a wonderful woman who's sponsoring the shir that her 2 daughters should find this shir quickly and easily. For the Shabbos table subject that we're learning, on Shabbos, if you look in your Mauser, you will see that we learn this Shabbos from Parshas Kisisa, which talks about the different Yomim Tovim. And so we'll talk about the laning. In the laning, Moshe Rabbeinu asks his famous question to Hashem, Hoidi'eni no esdrachecha. Please educate me in your ways. And the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to know, Mipnei ma tzadik v'ra'alei, how come some righteous people suffer, lo yaleinu? V'rasha v'tayvloi, and how come there's some wicked, dastardly people that things seem to be going good? So Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, the way the Gemara explains it in Masechtas Brachas, I'm sorry, you can't know the answer to this. It's very complex. V'chanosi es asher ochain, I show favor to those that I show favor. V'richamti es asher arachim, and I have mercy to those that I have mercy to. So basically, this is a very important thing for us to know. When somebody says, I can't understand why that person is suffering, such a good person, we have to know, Mishpatecha Tohaim Rabbah, that the Mishpatei Elokim is very deep. It's very complex. That even Moshe Rabbeinu, who knew the whole Torah, wasn't able to grasp it. So we shouldn't try to grasp it. We shouldn't ask questions. And the reason is because not everything is what we see. Like when Leiby Kletsky, that pure child, was horribly mutilated and murdered, Rav Chaim Kanievsky published a message to the world that you could only understand this through the side of Gilgal. In other words, there are things going on that we can't know, that we don't see. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was told. I'm sorry, you cannot, you don't have all the information, so don't try. Like it says in the Zohar, Eila mishpatim asher tosim lefneim, you have to bring your laws, your cases to a Jewish court, where Hashem pulls the strings, Elohim Nitzav Badas El. Rabbeinu Shalom is in a Jewish court, and sometimes the court rules against an honest person, and people say, well, what's going on? So the Zohar says, An Eila Mishpat Ma'asher Tasim Lefneim, Dohi Saida de Gilgula. That's the secret of Gilgal. So sometimes things happen that are beyond our ken. We have to know that. But on this pasuk of Achanoisi es Asher Ochain, I will show favor to one who shows favor. There's a Medrash Mishlei that is a great fundamental of life. It's kedai to listen to this shir just to hear this Medrash Mishlei. And it's so powerful that I'm quoting it verbatim. Adam hamedaber toiv al chaverai, a man who speaks good about his friend, malachi asharis medabrim alav schus lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A person who speaks good about his fellow man, the angels will speak good about him to Hashem. Imagine, I'm going to give you a few pieces of great advice how to put this lovely medrash into practice. You go to your father-in-law or mother-in-law, or both, and tell them, you know your daughter, she's such a wonderful wife. So first of all, it's music to their ears. First of all, it's music to their ears because it means to them that their daughter is in a happy marriage. And that's what a parent wants to hear. But also, our work in life is our children. So when you tell your in-laws that their child, their daughter, is a good person, you're making them feel so accomplished and so fulfilled. And this is a simple application of Medaber Toiv al Chavera. You're speaking good about Chaver. What better Chaver than your wife? Or your husband? You could do this to your husband's parents. And then the angels will go and speak good about us. That's what Chanoisi as Asher Ochan, Medrash Mishlei. It's unbelievable. I give you another way to practice this. Your child is having a real good year in school. I mean, Mamish, the Rebbe got him interested in learning. He wants to learn. And he comes home and he asks questions. So you know what you do? One day, you go over to the school and you tell the Menahel, the principal, you know this 5th grade Rebbe, Rabbi so-and-so, he's really something special. I see it in my son. That's very good for the Rebbe's career. And the Rebbe deserves it. It's great akar satayv. After all, the Rebbe is your shliach to be mekayim v'shinantam levanecha. There are some people that at the beginning of the year they take a Gemara or a Mishnayos and they hand it over to the Rebbe and they say, I'm making you a shliach. And then, besides that this is the right takar satayv and it's such a good thing to do, then the angels will talk good about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to give you one more example of this. These are all very practical. You're in shul, and you see that one family, the children are always sitting with the father. They're not running around. They're not making noise. They're not talking outside. They're always sitting by the father and they're answering Amen and Amen Yeshmei Rabbah. You go over to the father and you say to the father, you know, it's a mamish ahana to see how your children are behaving. you're giving tremendous nachas to the father and encouragement to the father. You're speaking good about Chaveira, about the children. The Malachim will speak good about you. It's mamish beferish medrash mishlei on the chanoisi asasharachan. You know, it's interesting because there is a word from the famous Reb Chaim Palaji, who wrote hundreds of svarim. He held that it was a big schooler to feed the birds. I used to go, when I lived in Staten Island, I used to go very often with my wife, Mim Libby, Allah Shalom, and bring the leftover crumbs of the challah, and I used to feed the birds. People would watch because the birds would flock to me, mamish, sometimes hundreds of birds. So Reb Chaim Palaji says that one who feeds the birds go and speak good on their behalf to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now, while this is a skula, this Medrash Mishlei is a bigger skula. If you speak good about people to others, Malachim will speak good about you. It's a good habit to get into. I mean, I could keep on giving you practical examples. You could go over to the Rav and say what a great job the Gabbai is doing. Rav might not know all the ins and outs of how the Gabbai did shuttle diplomacy between different people that had different chiyuvim. You speak good on behalf of someone, the Malachim will speak good about you. Big incentive. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Hareini noes kvodecha. Let me see your honor, your glory. So Hashem said, Ki lo yir'ani ha'adam v'choy. No man can see me and live. This is a klal. The human body cannot handle the sheer pleasure of seeing Hashem. It would blow all our sensory circuits. We would blow out. And this is the reason the Sefer Hasidim said that Hevel had to die. Because when the fire came down to lick up Hevel's carbon, Hashem liked Hevel's carbon. Hevel looked at the fire, and in the fire was the Shekhinah. Hevel was not supposed to look at the Shekhinah. That's why Sefer Hasidim says his name was Hevel. He died because he looked at the Havla of the Shekhinah. He didn't die right away, but that's why he had to die. Cain killed him. He had to die because he looked at the Shekhinah. And Moshe Rabbeinu, who was a Gilgal of Hevel, Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gilgal of Hevel and Noach, he was misakin this when, by the burning bush, it says, Ki yorei mehabit. He was afraid to look. Because he was misakin, he didn't want to look at Hashem. Because of Yirani Adam V'choy. This is the reason why Lot and his family were told, Al tabeit acharecha, don't look behind. Because the Shekhinah came down to destroy Sodom. You can't look at the Shekhinah. Lot's wife, Iris, who turned around, she died. Can't look at the Shekhinah. That's why it says in the Pasuk, in the night of Pesach, Ish lo yitzetzu Pesach beisei loyla. No Jew was allowed to leave the house. Why? Because it says the Shekhinah came. Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo saraf. And you can't see the Shekhinah. So Ish lo yitzetzu Pesach beisei loyla. They weren't allowed to leave the house. It's a Ferish Pasuk. Pasuk in Navi. And that's why they learned that the tzoyar in the Teva was a precious gem, not a window. First of all, the sun and the moon didn't operate, but also because Hashem destroyed the generation of the flood, and you can't look at the Shekhinah. To look at the Shekhinah is a very dangerous thing. There's a very poetic, moving Zoyar on the pasuk of Ki lo Yarani Adam V'choy. A very moving Zoyar. It says, and I want to quote it. To me, it was very. The Zoyar is in Parshas Vayechi. Zoyar says, Lo Yarani Adam V'choy b'chayeyem ein zoichem l'rois. We're not zoichet to see Hashem in our lifetime. Aval b'moisam, when a person dies after it 120, zoichem l'rois. Then a person sees Hashem. And now the Zohar gets very, very interesting. Ubishasha adameis, when a person dies, v'noisna loya rishus lirais, and he's given the permission to see Hashem, roya etzloi es kroivav v'chaveirav, he sees next to Hashem his relatives, his friends, me'olam emes, u'makir behem, he recognizes them. Ve'im b'tzurasam, and they're in their form, k'moi shahaya ba'olam hazeh. V'im tzaddik, if he's a righteous, deserving fellow, then kulam smeichim, then they greet him joyously, umakdimim lo shalom, and they greet him with peace. However, if chas v'shalom v'im einoi tzaddik, then noidim elav rak rishon, then he's greeted only by wicked people. V'kulam atzuvim, and they all look sad. U'poischim ba'oi u'mesaimim ba'oi. This made me think of something that made a big reishim on me. Rabbi Dr. Tversky, Zech Tzadik V'Bracha, Schus Yagan Aleinu, another prolific writer. He wrote a book called Gvura, a sefer called Gvura, when he turned 80. And in it he writes a very interesting thing. He writes that he's getting older, but he can't be afraid of death, because the thought of meeting his wonderful ancestors that he misses so much is so exciting that it makes him not afraid of death. And it's interesting, the Zohar wants to give us an image that if a person lives a worthy life, he's going to be met not only by the Rabbeinu Shalom, but by wonderful friends and relatives that were good people that are going to greet him with a smile and a greeting. It's a very nice imagery. In the laning that we lay on Hamoed, we learn about the second luchas. So it says, "V'gam ish al yeira b'chol hahar." Now when Moshe Rabbeinu would do the second luchas, no man could see by the mountain. The Kotzker Rebbe says, that the first luchas that were given b'pumbi, with great pomp and ceremony in front of 600,000 men, 20 and 60 in front of 3 million people. Sholto ben ayin hara, since it was given with such a crowd, there was an ayin hara, and they were broken. The second one that was given b'tzina, privately, just Moshe Rabbeinu, no one else could be there, that endured. Tzaddikim like the Stipler Gaon always recommended, it's safe to be under the radar. To fly under the radar. The Gemara says, the Bali Musa take this homiletically. The Gemara says, Bayis ofel ein bo tzaras. A house that's dark doesn't have tzaras. That means a house that doesn't have windows can't have tzaras of the house. Because it says that Kohen has to be able to inspect it. And if it doesn't have any windows, he can't inspect it. But what it means is if a person stays out of view, there's safety. This is what it says. Hatznei aleches im Hashem alikecha. Act modestly with Hashem. I heard from Rabbi Eisen, Zech Tzaddik V'Bracha, who learned by Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, Zech Tzaddik V'Bracha, Hashem Yinkem Dama. He told me over from his Heilige Rebbe that Rabbi Chanan said, Hatznei aleches, if a poor person walks modestly and doesn't need for people to know, then that's proof that he's doing it im Hashem alikecha. He's doing it for Hashem. He's not doing it for accolades. He's not doing it for honor because people don't have to know. However, this is a tightrope. This is not a simple rule. Because we're taught at the same, we're taught in the same vein that we're supposed to try to get other people to do good things. So therefore somebody will say, well, I'm not going to call out $180 by an appeal because I want to stay under the radar. No. You're supposed to try to encourage other people to give tzedakah. You know, you could say, Rabbi, why shouldn't put up a sign that, he's on YouTube and Torah Anytime and Kol HaLashon, he's not staying under the radar. So for that, I remember I told Oilam this. My first Rebbetzin, Miriam Liba Basar Baron, was very frightened when I had the very big shir in the Aguda in Borough Park. Hundreds and hundreds of people. She was very afraid of Ayin Hara. So we went to the Baba Rebbe at the Heilige Reb Shlomo Babava, and he told her, you don't have to worry, it says, Mitzvahs Hashem bara me'ira seinoyim. And Shomer Mitzvah lo yada davara. So it's a double-edged thing. Person has to know if he's advertising in order to get more people to come to learn, if he's advertising in order to get more people to give tzedakah, that's okay. But otherwise it says in halacha that if a person boasts about the tzedakah that he does, not only does he lose the reward of the tzedakah, but it's considered a sin. So we have to know we have to be very careful with this. We know matan b'seiser yich ba'af. It's interesting. We're talking about the fact that the second luchas that were given privately endured. There's a famous Rabbeinu Bachya. Rabbeinu Bachya says that when we break the glass under the chuppah, it's to remind us of the shviras haluchas, the breaking of the luchas. Now that's very confusing. We know we break the last zeichel l'churban, right? And we say that at the pinnacle of the chassan and kala's joy, Tales Yerushalayim al Rosh Simchasi. They should think about the churban. But what does it have to do with the breaking of the luchas? So Rabbeinu Bachya says the first luchas that was given in front of everybody didn't endure. The second luchas that was given privately that endured. That's to teach the Chassan and Kala that the main thing is what they do between each other when they're alone at home. That's what's going to cause the marriage to endure. V'nake lo yanake. So it's, which one is it? V'nake or lo yanake? V'nake is cleansed, lo yanake is it's not cleansed. Rabbi Akiva Aimer, as I state in Medrash, Rabbi Akiva Aimer b'dvarim shebein chol beinai, things between Hashem and us, yanake. Nake. Hashem will cleanse us. Dvarim shebein adam l'chaveirai lo yanake. Because we know that it's brought down that suffering in this world comes because of sins between us and our fellow man. Suffering in the next world is because of Bein Adam LaHashem. But suffering in this world is because of Bein Adam l'Chaveira. It's a very big yesod to know. That's why a person has to be very careful with Lashon Hara. Now, people are much more careful not to eat pig than to speak Lashon Hara. But eating pig, punishment doesn't come in this world. But speaking Lashon Hara, punishment comes in this world. Ainas Devarim, hurtful words, punishment comes in this world. That's why Reb Kiva said, "Va'afta re'ach kamaycha zeh klal gadol b'Torah." I want to just finish. This is a special shir, Ramamish B'dika night, right before Pesach. I think this is the first time I gave a shir in 43 years for the laning of Chol Hamoed Pesach. I don't think I ever did that before. An interesting idea. It says, "V'lo yachmoid ish es artzecha." Hashem says, don't worry, nobody will desire your land. When you come up, aliyah l'regel sholosh pamim b'shana. Don't worry. You live in Aram Naharaim. You live far away and you're coming up aliyah l'regel, and you leave the elderly, the people that can't make the trip, and you have Goyish neighbors, and you have farm, you have an expensive house. Don't worry, nobody is going to come. They know that no men are home. It's undefended. Don't worry. The Marsha says not only that, but you could leave your animals, you can leave your cow grazing, and no animal will attack it. Even though all the shepherds aren't there, they went up aliyah l'regel. This is a stupendous miracle that happened year after year after year, 3 times a year when Klal Yisrael is Shuriyim Bad Masan. Not only that, but I remember Reb Noach Weinberger said this is such a riot of Torah is min hashamayim. If a human being wrote this, could a human being give such a promise? Could a human being say, don't worry, come up to the temple, leave the women, leave them undefended, leave the elderly, leave all your property, nobody will bother you. Only Rabbi Shalom could give such a promise. Such an amazing raya of Torah min hashamayim. Rabbi say, for my Talmidim, if you still want to get ready for the Seder, first of all, if somebody wants help in running the Seder, maybe you haven't run a Seder for a while, if you look on TorahAnytime.com, during COVID, I gave something called a mock Seder, 5780, where I did a whole example of a Seder, so you could watch that. Also, there's 4 shiurim on the Haggadah this year. One starting the Haggadah, one Haggadah Gems 5786, one Seder Gems 5786, and one Shabbos Haggadah Drasha 5786. Everyone should have a wonderful Pesach, an inspiring Gesundta Seder, and we should be Zeicha to the Bias Gel Tzedek, B'mher B'yameinu.